And it's time for Lefties losing it. Yep, a new year, but the same old crazy left with their unlimited supplies of hate, lunacy and depravity. Let's start in Minneapolis, where the awfuls, that's the affluent white female lefties, are doing all they can to obstruct law enforcement. Doing everything they can to provoke and obstruct, to protect criminals. That's what they're doing. It's an insurrection, and I don't use that word lightly, an insurrection provoked by this sort of reckless rhetoric. Let's hear from the governor of Minnesota, Tampon Tim Walz, who claims ICE agents are hunting and kidnapping innocent people.
ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live. They're pulling over people indiscriminately, including U.S. citizens, and demanding to see their papers. And at grocery stores, at bus stops, even at our schools, they're breaking windows, dragging pregnant women down the street, just plain grabbing Minnesotans and shoving them into unmarked vans, kidnapping innocent people with no warning and no due process.
Just reckless craziness. And here he claims ICE agents are committing atrocities.
And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution.
Let's look at some of these protesters. They're not just filming, they are obstructing, they are violent, and they are committing crimes. Here they steal a rifle and ammunition from a weapons locker in a federal vehicle.
Almost there.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
Where are the cops? And here is a little more lawlessness from Minneapolis, with law enforcement vehicles being destroyed. And staying in Minnesota, let's not forget about the billions, yes, billions with a B, defrauded from US taxpayers. Segments of the Somalian community have been cleaning up, running childcare centres without any children. But of course, the media is uninterested in that. They were more eager to run PR exercises from the left, claiming the unprecedented fraud was fake news. But the counter-offensive did not go too well. Look at this woman's reaction when she inadvertently admits there is fraud.
And I do see some signs over here that say stop fraud, and I agree, stop it. There are wait lists for these programs that are years long. There is fraud,
Oops, and here is another Minnesota mum who freaks out, absolutely freaks out when she inadvertently admits fraud is bad.
I understand, fraud is bad.
Yes, well done, love. You did really good. We'll get back to Minneapolis soon, but let's check in with Lefty Heartland, Seattle. Wonder what's been happening there.
Here with me all. Hands up, Venezuela! Hands up, Venezuela! Free President Maduro! La lucha sigue! Libertad, socialismo o muerte! Venceremos!
Yes, literally protesting to free a mass murdering dictator. A dude in a dress protesting to free a mass murdering dictator. Clearly, He's not aware of Maduro's attitude to the LGBTQIA++++ community. Meanwhile, despite claims from the left that Republicans are split over Trump's actions with Maduro, the data proves otherwise. Take away CNN's polling expert, Harry Enton.
Let me be very clear. There is no rift in the Republican Party. Yes, there are some folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie who are quite skeptical of this. They are very much in the minority. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just talk the GOP on the U.S. military ousting Maduro? Ipsos, 65% support, 6% opposed. How about the Washington Post poll? 74% support, just 10% opposed. If you look among 2024 Trump supporters, we're talking about 80% support.
Let's get back to the madness in Minneapolis. We now have churches falling victim to this lawless insurrection. Protesters stormed a city's church service after claiming one of the pastors there is an ICE agent. Don Lemon was with the protesters, naturally. Let's listen to his report.
Have gathered over here. They're in the middle of the church. In the beginning of the church service, the pastor was speaking, and Nikema stood up and said her piece, and then the protesters surrounded her. But this is a clandestine mission. I think they found out one of, according to them, this is according to Operation Pull Up, that one of the pastors here is a member of ICE. And so here we go.
You could talk to the lead pastor.
Yeah.
Joining me now is president of the Center of the American Experiment and writer for the popular Powerline blog, John Hinderaker. John, we're now storming a church service, frightening parishioners, surrounding the pastor. What in God's name is happening in your state?
Rita, what is going on in Minnesota is an insurrection, a rebellion against federal authority. We haven't seen anything like it in the United States since 1861, when the Confederate States seceded. This insurrection is being incited by Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, and Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis. And it has now spiraled out of control, in part because local police are being held back and are not maintaining order. Invading a church on a Sunday morning, it's an absolute outrage. These so-called protesters are at a minimum trespassing. And if they each spent a week in the county jail, these disruptions would stop immediately, but that isn't happening. And the protests keep getting more and more disruptive. The Democrats are at war against the Trump administration, and that's the basic reality. Anything the administration tries to do, the Democrats resist with all their might. And these liberals do not want federal immigration law to be enforced. And it's terrible, Rita, because these ICE agents are picking up murderers, multiple murderers, child rapists, criminals of all sorts. And of course, they're all illegal aliens to boot, which is a crime in itself. And the Democrats simply don't want these laws to be enforced. And this is their way of making war on the Trump administration.
John, you talked about some of these violent offenders who are being rounded up, and I want to play you this clip from an officer who has had enough with these protesters. Listen to this.
So you're reporting, we're here to arrest a child sex offender. And you guys are out here honking.
Oh, we're not. No, we're press. No, we're not.
That vehicle right there is honking and impeding our investigations while we're trying to arrest a child sex offender. That's who you guys are protecting. Insane.
John, it is insane because we are having murderers deported, child sex offenders, rapists, and yet these protesters are doing everything within their power to try to obstruct.
That's a key point, Rita. They aren't really protesting. What they're doing is interfering with these ICE agents who are trying to enforce federal law. That is a federal crime. You cannot impede and interfere with law enforcement. They'll do things like they'll park their vehicles perpendicular across the street. So they'll try to trap ICE agents in a particular place so they can't get out and go about their law enforcement duties. They harass them in a multitude of ways. And it's a crime, and yet they are not being punished.
And these protesters aren't just agitated about ICE and deportation. They're also upset about the focus that has been on the fraud in your state, the fraud perpetrated mainly by segments of the Somalian community. Tell me a little bit about that. Do we yet know the full scale of this fraud?
Well, Rita, we know some of it. The Feeding Our Future scandal is kind of the headline here. It has been for the last 4 years. In the Feeding Our Future scandal, so far, 78 people have been charged, 57 have been convicted. There have been a couple of trials as well as guilty pleas, and there are more charges pending. That's a $500 million theft. But the assistant U.S. attorney who has prosecuted those Feeding Our Future cases says that they've been investigating the $18 billion in Medicaid spending in Minnesota over the last few years, and he's concluded that at least one half of that $18 billion has been stolen by fraudsters. So we're probably looking at a fraud here of $10 billion or more.
Astonishing. And the next state that's going to have some scrutiny is going to be California. It'll be fascinating to see what's uncovered there. Your governor, the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, the man who could have been vice president, is going to step down. How culpable is he for the dysfunction in Minnesota?
Rita, he is highly culpable. He's absolutely responsible. He has actively encouraged resistance to federal authority. I call him the Jefferson Davis of the 21st century. He's threatened to call out the Minnesota National Guard to fight against ICE. And he mused in a press conference about being at war with the federal government. The man is an absolute disgrace, and he bears a lot of responsibility for what is going on now in Minneapolis.
You know what? He was a figure of mockery, really, throughout that presidential campaign. Tampon Tim, he was called, because he was putting tampons in boys' bathrooms across his state. But really, he is such a dangerous figure. And you think about that election 2024 now, and what would have happened if we did have a Kamala Harris, Tim Walz team in the White House today?
Rita, all we can say is we're all grateful that didn't happen. I mean, Walz was a laughingstock during that campaign, but I think in the time that's gone by since, more people have realized that he's not just a laughingstock, he's really a menace. And, he is not running for re-election. He had announced that he was running for re-election. He's now changed his mind, is going to step down at the end of this term. And obviously that's because of all of the turmoil that has been going on.
Now, you mentioned about the local police not maintaining order. That's something that has been noted by people who have been observing what's been happening in Minneapolis and elsewhere in Minnesota. We've had protesters just behave appallingly. Stephen Miller, the commentator, not the Trump administration, Stephen Miller, he points out that in recent days, we've seen these protest groups chase innocent men out of a diner, attack an innocent guy on the street who was actually with them. They harassed an innocent guy in an SUV, demanding that he show his ID. They blocked an innocent guy because his rental car plates, and they've now stormed a church service, as we played earlier. And he says, I haven't seen a single Minneapolis police officer in any of the video footage. How is that possible? What is happening there within the police force, and what orders are they receiving in terms of how to handle these protests?
Well, it's because Minneapolis is a sanctuary city. And what that means is, by law, the local police don't cooperate with federal immigration authorities. And that's terrible, because ICE really needs local police to do crowd control and maintain order. That should not be ICE's job, but that's not happening here. And so these ICE agents are being continuously harassed and interfered with. And that is by design. Minneapolis is legally a sanctuary city, and that is intended to take the local police out of the action and make it impossible to enforce federal law.
Now, let's talk about what's happening in Iran and the US's response. The Trump administration's response has been praised and criticised. It's clear that Donald Trump is backing the protesters, but after he warned the Iranian regime not to kill innocent, peaceful protesters, he hasn't done anything when that has happened. And there's been fairly extensive evidence now of a very horrific crackdown on protesters, reports of thousands being killed. We've seen further sanctions by the US, but no military action. John, how do you see the White House's response to what's happening in Iran?
Well, Rita, it does seem that Trump has backed off in recent days, and I think that probably reflects the fact that it is hard to have a lot of influence if you aren't willing to put soldiers in the field. Now the mullahs have shut off communications, they've shut down the internet and so forth. They apparently have gone on killing thousands of people. They obviously need to go, but whether President Trump is willing to do anything further to get rid of them remains to be seen.
It's also interesting that we've not heard much from Russian President Vladimir Putin. He's been unusually quiet throughout the last couple of weeks with the uprising. Same with China. And Jamie Siddle writes in news.com that there's a new player on the block, US President Donald Trump. He's unpredictable, he's brash, he's upending every expectation, and that's unbalancing every global axis. Now, do you agree that that is in part why the Ayatollah's regime is on the brink of collapse? And can that collapse happen independent of some sort of assistance from the US?
Rita, there's no doubt that Trump's encouragement has helped to spur on these protests, which we all fervently hope will bring this horrible Iranian regime finally to an end. But one thing we've seen historically, Rita, is that tyrannical regimes can hang on for a long time after they're seemingly dead in the water. Cuba is a good example of that, a totally discredited government, but still there after 85 years. And so we hope that these public protests and so forth will bring down the mullah's regime. But at this point, we really don't know. We've got to wait and see.
And before you go, this is the first chance I've had to ask you about the astonishing events, the astonishing feat of the Trump administration to remove the Venezuelan dictator Maduro. That operation, I think, is something we'll talk about for years to come, decades. And it wasn't just about drugs or freeing an oppressed population, was it, John? But and I think it's more than about just seizing control of all that oil. It was about weakening America's foes, particularly China.
Yeah, that action has had some really interesting consequences in the international scene. You know, the Russians knew that the mission was coming. They pulled all their people out, but they didn't tell their Chinese ally. And the Chinese were meeting with Maduro like hours before he was arrested by the Americans. And in China, that reportedly has raised some serious questions about their alliance with Russia and how solid it really is. And it's also revealed Chinese weakness in the New World, especially because China has pledged eternal solidarity with Maduro. But when the time came, they couldn't actually do anything. So, yes, seizing the oil and cutting off that supply of oil to China does hurt China economically. But there are reports that China's leaders are also reassessing their foreign strategies as a result of what happened in Venezuela, including their alliance with Russia.
Yes, very interesting indeed, because China has become reliant on that oil, and it's also become reliant on the oil from Iran. Most of Iran's oil ends up in China, so that's going to put considerable pressure on Beijing. Welcome back. Joining me now is celebrity and royal commentator and the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, Kinsey Schofield. Let's start with Keith Urban. He's already moved on from our Nicole, with reports he has moved in with a new girlfriend. Kinsey, what do we know about this mystery woman?
Absolutely. Let's talk about her. Carly Scott Collins is the mystery woman. She's a 26-year-old former child actress turned country crooner. I know. I'm appalled too, Rita. She released her debut album in 2025. She's worked with other A-listers like Willie Nelson. She has worked with Keith Urban in the past, and she made her Grand Ole Opry debut back in 2024. Now, she has recently denied rumors of a romantic relationship, but following his divorce with Nicole Kidman, Nicole is clearly dominating the PR war. So one must ask if this is just self-preservation, like trying to distance herself from Keith Urban.
It is too soon, and I'm not going to say she's too young, but, you know, as they say, love is love. But what would be the age difference there, roughly? 25 years?
Too long, yeah.
30 years?
She is
How old
too.
is
It's
Keith
giving
Urban?
Bill Belichick. It's giving Bill Belichick.
Oh, that's extreme. Princess Eugenie is distancing herself from her parents over the fallout from their association with Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Sarah Ferguson are due to vacate the Royal Lodge as soon as next week, Kinsey. And the Telegraph understands that Eugenie is frustrated that the entire York family has been tarnished.
Look, I think that this is clever counsel. We don't punish children for the sins of their parents, but association matters. You are, to some extent, judged by the company you keep. And it is impossible to look at ex-Prince Andrew's daughters without being reminded of the scandal and embarrassment he's brought upon the royal family in recent years. In that context, Princess Eugenie's efforts to distance herself are not disloyalty, but self-preservation. And the further she steps away, the safer her standing becomes within the monarchy.
Now, Harry and Meghan are struggling to hold on to publicists again. Last December, their 11th publicist resigned after the controversy following their appearance at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party. Kinsey, they have now returned to working with Sunshine Sachs Morgan and Lilas. They also represent Leonardo DiCaprio and Jimmy Fallon.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Thoughts and prayers to Sunshine Sachs. As detailed in Tom Bower's Revenge and Valentine Lowe's Courtiers, Meghan erupted after her 2017 Vanity Fair cover read with the headline, "She's just wild about Harry," phoning Ken Sunshine and Kaylee Thomas Morgan of Sunshine Sachs in fury. She also later described the headline as racist, citing its link to a 1939 Judy Garland song associated with blackface. So good luck to Sunshine Sachs. This sounds like a nightmare from Hades.
It sounds like a nightmare. You can just see them assigning the person they hate in the office to Harry and Meghan. You deal with them, because whatever you do, they're going to be unhappy and it's going to all end in tears. But let's stick with publicists. Brooklyn Beckham and his wife Nicola Peltz have parted ways with their publicists. The pair were apparently upset at their negative portrayal in the media, Kinsey. There's talk Brooklyn may reconcile with his parents. They're saying that he wants to, but his wife is against it.
Look, I really love and respect Victoria and David's strategy throughout this ordeal, which you might recognize: never complain, never explain. Both still post about loving their children and include photos of Brooklyn on social media. This has echoes of Harry and Meghan. How appropriate that these couples seem to get along so wonderfully. It's my opinion that they also have elder abuse in common. Brooklyn, call your grandparents. They miss you. It's not the publicist making you look like an entitled little jerk. It's your actions.
I got to say, I stumbled upon an Instagram video from Brooklyn Beckham. He was making a chicken parmigiana dish in the video. It was a cooking video, but I looked at the comments, and every single comment, Kinsey, that I saw was criticism. Comments like, call your mum, drop the Beckham name if you're going to ignore your parents, and even advice telling him to leave his wife.
I mean, you know, he has been so hateful to his family, telling them not too long ago to not communicate with him unless it's through his attorneys. So I think that this is a natural reaction. He has the platform he has today because of that last name, because of his mom and dad, and he should be more grateful for it.
Now, new data shared with the New York Post shows that late night shows, those late night talk shows that we mock so often on this program, Well, they're more left than ever. Jokes targeting conservatives increased 10% in 2025. I didn't know they had any room to increase. And across shows that include Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon, they've had 197 left-leaning guests compared to just 2 conservative ones. Kinsey, this explains why their ratings are circling the drain and why someone like Greg Gutfeld is just soaring on Fox News.
Yeah, these guys have killed the magic of late night. They don't care to talk to everyone anymore or entertain everyone. They just want to talk to their tribe. You know, traditional late night TV isn't as dominant as it once was, analytically, statistically, because of this, because they've just decided to alienate 50% of the country. Viewership and ad revenue are down, and younger viewers are tuning in elsewhere. And networks are trying to adapt to that reality. By firing Stephen Colbert, and then Colbert wants to blame Trump. It's all Trump's fault. But I just think that they are no longer trying to talk to the country. They're just trying to talk to their clique.
And they're not even trying to be entertaining or funny. It's almost like they're preaching for applause from the increasingly diminishing left-wing audience. Amy Schumer, she's another lefty comic, but her friends have weighed in on these bikini pics she's been posting lately. Number of these pics, one in a red bikini in the middle of her Manhattan apartment. One source has told the Daily Mail that Schumer is craving attention. They said she is trying to deal with the divorce and her new look, but she doesn't really know what she is doing. It is all still new, her new body, her new life, and her fresh divorce. It's a lot at once, Kinsey.
Rita, if I ever start doing this, if I ever just start posting pictures in a bathing suit late at night, I need you to start the conservatorship process immediately. Take my internet away. I just think that this makes her look absolutely, aside from insecure, insane. And congratulations on your new body, but no one cares but you.
That is a very good point indeed. And you can show off that new body in a nice tight-fitting dress in the middle of winter in Manhattan in your apartment. It's just odd to be in a red bikini in an apartment in New York, nowhere near the beach, nowhere near the water. At least go by a poolside and take a photo, because then people will not be wondering what is going on. It does seem like a bit of a cry for help. Now, before you go, actress Claire Foy, who's best known for her depiction of the Queen on The Crown, she says that actors shouldn't be weighing in on politics. She told AV Magazine, if you're just making noise for the sake of it, then you should probably shut up. So I tend to shut up. This is sound advice, Kinsey.
Isn't it? And I would even say this to Nicki Minaj, who I know we're all like, oh, Nicki Minaj has come out and is speaking sense. But look at the amount of followers she lost. If your objective is to have a long career and you just want to entertain and you just want people to get lost in your world, be careful about speaking out about politics, because you will alienate a significant amount of people and you risk losing fans. You risk losing people that might put money in your pocket in the future.
Kinsey Schofield, thank you so much for your time.